Since the conclusion of the Hero Hunter saga, the One Punch Man God storyline has been a major focus with the proliferation of many characters who hold the powers of God, like Homeless Emperor, Anti-Void, and Garou himself. In the wake of that, many fans have focused heavily on Garou's latest and strongest power-up, Cosmic Fear Mode, due to the impressive feats he has which radically changed how we see the entire series. That said, today I mainly want to focus on those early versions of Garou, the monster version, and his intense powers and why I consider him pretty underrated. Of course, Garou has evolved far more than ever before, ever since his days of struggling with Tank Top Master to defeating Metal Bat to his most recent bout with Superalloy Darkshine. I've discussed Darkshine in depth in this video, no, not that one, or that one. In this fight alone, we saw the extent of Garou's abilities when pressed against someone far superior. A casual Darkshine was so strong that Garou couldn't even block his attack with the Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist, the ultimate defensive martial art, and his ribcage was shattered to pieces. Garou then gets back up, matches Darkshine's full power, and beats the shit out of him. This is insane seeing as Garou closed this gap in less than a chapter. As said, in a battle against the strong, the harder he is pushed, the more Garou can draw upon his potential and evolve even more. This establishes a pretty good baseline for Monster Garou before he takes an extended monster nap. Garou later reappears where he fights Bang and Bomb. First is Bomb, who is fatigued but still strong enough to compete with Garou for a while, but seems to lack the stamina to stay in the fight for very long. This is shown best when Garou and Bomb clash with the Whirlwind Iron Cutting Fist, and neither of them is blatantly stronger in the clash, but Bomb is already sweating and breathing heavily. You'll notice this is a recurring trend with Garou when he fights opponents of a comparable level. He's usually able to take most of their attacks with little damage until they run out of energy. Next, of course, is Bang, where the two have a highly competitive battle that I've analyzed in many videos. The main thing of note is that almost immediately at the start of the fight, Garou uses the Awakening Breath, a technique to draw out the full limits of his body, which means Garou in this feral state is pushing his body to its maximum. This is important because many believe Garou's abilities are being nerfed by him being asleep, as was said when he fought Darkshine, but the same can't be said here. It should also be noted that during this fight with Darkshine, Garou's moves were being compared to thrashing, and he was blatantly incapable of making full use of his techniques, whereas against Bang, he's able to perform the Sky Aura Ripping Fist, a technique that is straight up impossible for Bang to perform, despite being pretty much as skilled as any normal person could possibly be. Garou is said to be using a combination of all fighting styles when fighting Bomb, which is the same description of the Monster Calamity Godslayer Fist, meaning it's likely he's using this technique or some early version of it. It does need to be said that Garou did not complete the God Fist in his fight with Platinum S and Flashy as many people believe, as he says he's nearing perfection. It also makes sense seeing as Bang was able to take numerous blows from Garou, but a single graze from the Sky Aura Ripping Fist was enough to instantly defeat him, whereas Platinum S and Flash could withstand the Godslayer Fist, even though both took serious damage from Garou's normal punches. Logically speaking, if the God Fist was perfect, it should amplify Garou more than the Sky Aura Ripping Fist, but it doesn't seem to be. That debate aside, Bang beats Flashy Flash. Garou defeats Bang as well, displaying the Explosion Release Fist, which pushes his body even further beyond his normal limits, and the Sky Aura Ripping Fist, which I already said, which when used by Bang and Bomb could shatter the carapace of Elder Centipede. Seeing as Garou is physically superior to Bang and Bomb and is using the exact same technique, and can use even stronger techniques like the Cross-Fang Dragon Slayer Fist, Garou should at least be able to do the same thing they did to Elder Centipede, but unlike Bang and Bomb, Garou is not limited to using this technique once a day. He instantly uses it a second time against Evil Natural Water to blow him away after he one-shots Vomit Fear Ugly, a monster who can match punches with Darkshine and just took a combination of punches from Golden S and shook it off. In the end, the only actual Garou takes in this fight is a crack on his shell that doesn't even cover half his face, showing once again Garou is highly durable even compared to people that can match his strength. Next he fights Flashy Flash and Platinum S, where all three are relative at least in terms of travel speed and power, although Garou never makes use of the Sky Aura Ripping Fist like he did on Bang. Flash is pretty quickly defeated and Garou and Platinum S speed up even more. It's then said that Garou's synapses are ever accelerating as he blitzes full power and enraged Platinum S so bad he can't even hope to react before Garou blows him into bits. Now, exactly scaling Platinum S is something I don't really want to do right now, but he should clearly far surpass the likes of Bang and Flash. As I said earlier, Garou evolves the harder he is pushed, and neither Bang or Flash can stimulate extreme amounts of growth. However, once Platinum S goes all out, Garou grows from struggling with Platinum S to easily destroying him. Essentially, Platinum S is around Garou's level, if not stronger than him when they first fight, which means Garou by now could speed blitz anybody who was around his level before this fight, including Bang, Bomb, and Flashy Flash. It also means he should be far superior to the likes of Atomic Samurai wielding the Sunblade, since even a lesser Golden S could intercept his amplified Atomic Slash that was about to unalive Homeless Emperor, and only took small cuts from the attack before getting his arm chopped off and Atomic Samurai collapsing from exhaustion. Compare that to Garou making a superior combination explode into infinitesimal pieces, and he's clearly a lot stronger than the world's strongest swordsman. It's here that Sage Centipede and Evil Ocean Water appear after being summoned by God to fight the fist that turned against God, that being Saitama. I'll go over Sage Centipede's more specific scaling later, but Garou even now is considered strong by this soldier of God as he blitzes him and punches him in the face. What's important, however, is the fact that Garou at the start of the fight can only chip small chunks off of Sage Centipede's shell, versus at the end of the fight where he literally chops him in half from top to bottom across the entire length of his body. This is ridiculous. Sage Centipede's total body runs enough for him to climb into space, to the point you can see the curvature of the earth, with each little chip on his body being so tough even Platinum S would have a hard time denting them. Garou chops him in half across hundreds of miles of his body, making his new level of strength make his old strength seem insignificant in comparison, to the point I doubt you could even put a number on it. This leap in power is from two things, of course: Garou's adaptation, which he was heavily amplified by Metal Bat, funny enough, who just by working together passively increased their abilities, bringing Metal Bat from a level that struggled with normal Black S to him competing with Monster Garou in speed and damaging Sage Centipede. The second is Garou mastering his fist and completing the Monster Calamity Godslayer fist, which he quickly uses to one-shot Sage Centipede. This part is really important, and I think most people overlook it because look at this lame Centipede man, so pointless. Well, was it pointless? Why do you think one wrote Sage Centipede into the story when he could have just made Orochi come back? Manga isn't exactly well known for taking its time. Most artists tend to be rushed more often than not. So why did One and Murata take an extra 4 chapters with this seemingly pointless villain when they could have just had Garou stop at Platinum S? Now, this next part is obvious, but Sage Centipede is a larger form of Elder Centipede, who fought Bang in the past. During this fight, it's explained that Bang's moves would be ineffective against the monster due to his size, since techniques are only effective up to a certain size as they mostly target weak points that Elder Centipede doesn't have. Bang and Bomb then use their combination attack, which Genos calls the ultimate technique, and while it shatters his shell, Elder Centipede does manage to regenerate. Garou attempts to use these combination assaults as well, even with extra help from Metal Bat, but can't do anything to Sage Centipede due to his size and regeneration. But as soon as Garou perfects the God Fist, he instantly destroys Sage Centipede, and this is seen as some kind of awakening. And Garou sees Sage Centipede's appearance as a blessing. The point of this scene is to establish that Garou has surpassed the old masters and the old martial arts. If Garou almost perfected his fist against Platinum S, it would take an opponent that is above martial arts to propel Garou to the next stage. Say what you will about Sage Centipede being a bum, I think this is much better writing than most people give it credit for. Murata could have inserted a narrator quote saying Garou has reached the peak of skill or something, but instead, it was shown to us in a pretty interesting and nuanced way. Now we can go over the actual power scaling. Sage Centipede is a soldier of God sent to defeat Saitama, should far exceed the likes of Orochi. Orochi as a being was already directly connected to God and was destined to revive God upon the sacrifice altar, but instead was used to summon Sage Centipede. Therefore, I think it's pretty fair to say God is aware of what happened to Orochi and at least somewhat aware of his powers. He'd later even empower Orochi's fusion with Psychos, meaning he is even aware of higher powers as this fusion is said to be stronger than ever. I mean, it's literally Orochi plus Psychos, plus God Amps, plus biomass absorption, and it's implied God witnessed the battle with Fusion and Tatsumaki. Saitama not only one-punched Orochi, but also countered his strongest attack with a squirt gun. If God expects Sage Centipede to win against Saitama, he needs to at least be able to withstand these specific attacks. Obviously, God has no idea how strong Saitama truly is. All he knows is Saitama can easily defeat Orochi-level opponents, but he still sends Sage Centipede. A lot of people do think Orochi would win in a fight against Sage Centipede, but for our purposes, all you need to acknowledge is Sage Centipede can survive attacks far above Orochi's pay grade without getting blown to pieces like Saitama did to Elder Centipede. It may go a step further if you consider that Saitama may have been the only valid threat on God's radar, including Tatsumaki, who easily defeated the Orochi Psychos fusion I mentioned earlier. Many people even theorize that God interfered in the fight because Tatsumaki start fluctuating right after we see the moon, which is where God resides, or at least an avatar of his resides, yet he still sees Saitama as a greater threat. If this is true, he'd logically only send Sage Centipede and Evil Ocean Water if he expected them to deal with above Tatsumaki level opponents, and at least do decently. It's also possible that Sage Centipede and Evil Ocean Water would need to work together to be stronger than Orochi Fusion, meaning individually they'd still be getting close to that level of power. If you don't believe that, that's okay. The overall point I'm trying to get at is that Garou just one-shot an above Orochi level opponent. This should put him in the conversation of defeating Tatsumaki, who also defeated a stronger version of Orochi, with Garou boasting much better speed feats, regeneration, and high battle IQ. This should also put Garou above pretty much every top tier feat in this arc, including Psychos carving continents off the earth and Orochi pulling a large chunk of magma out of the planet's core just by powering up. The latter feat having been calculated as high as small planetary. It's then that Saitama appears and of course, Garou gets beat up. Like before, Garou evolves rapidly when faced with a stronger opponent, at one point mutating and evolving his entire body, which never happened in the previous battles. Garou feels his new overwhelming power and believes it's possible with this new strength he could defeat Saitama, who just tanked the same attack that destroyed Sage Centipede, and blew Garou's arm off, which he quickly regenerated. As said earlier, in the fight with Darkshine, Garou went from getting one shot to surpassing Darkshine in an extremely short period, yet Saitama poses a far greater challenge and forces more dramatic transformations. Garou undergoes these mutations 2 more times, growing in size, growing wings, extra arms, and developing new powers like energy blasts. We also see the extent of his martial arts, like his extreme Fajin attack, which he says completely bypasses all external defenses and directly hits the organs, and he's able to do this on a scale that affects the entire planet. Literally, focused on your organs. If Garou, when he first defeated Sage Centipede, was already around Tatsumaki level, he should safely surpass her now, and many people start to compare him to Boros and wonder who is stronger. If you are a part of the crowd that thinks Boros is weaker than Orochi or even Koketsu, this part of the video is not for you. Though I will admit that scaling Boros is pretty difficult, seeing as he only fights Saitama. That said, I am not saying this is concrete or anything, but I want to explain a bit of my thoughts on what I call the external narrative of these two and how they compare. When I say the external narrative, I mean how One and Murata are trying to present them, and like I said, I am not saying this is concrete. This is really headcanon-y, but just hear me out. Back in the day before Cosmic Garou and before even Orochi, all we had was the webcomic with a completely different storyline for Monster Garou. Back then, people heavily debated Garou versus Boros as the 2 top tiers after Saitama, to the point One himself was asked who would win. A lot of people misquote it and just include the part about it being a good match and that Garou has better fighting skills, but omit the second part of the statement that Boros will fight with overwhelming power and that he can't say for sure who is stronger. Later on, when Murata was working on the early parts of the Garou arc in the manga, he says One intended for Garou and Boros to be equally strong. This statement is very old, and it's honestly not unreasonable to say they might have changed their minds, but then you look at their respective fights with Saitama. Saitama compliments Boros' power in their battle, calling him strong. But with Garou, Saitama is impressed by his skills and his ability to parry his punches, much like one said many years ago. There are even some pages that mirror each other between both fights, where Garou dodges the same punches that hit Boros. I'm not saying Saitama was using the same strength he did on Boros, but you get the idea visually. According to guides and Boros himself, Boros straight up goes above physical limitations when using Meteoric Burst. A question arises on whether Garou, before getting power from God, was within physical limitation, and I think he is. Obviously, godly powers go beyond physical limits, but Garou doesn't have any of that yet. He's just a super evolved human monster man. If true, Boros would be stronger than Garou in terms of pure power and speed, but Garou would still have far superior combat skills, which would help him swap hands with someone above his power level, just like one said. With that all taken into account, the author's statements, the guides, the comparisons in the manga, is it hard to believe Boros and Final Form Monster Garou are around the same level? No, I don't think it is, and like I said, this whole argument is very headcanon-y, but I do think this is what one was thinking, which is why Cosmic Fear Mode Garou specifically is considered the next level. If you consider this arc was meant to introduce us to the next level of power of One Punch Man, it sorta makes sense. Garou would climb to the highest heights to rival the dominator of the universe, then surpass those heights and enter the realm of the gods.